Welcome to Beyond Food and Wine, a Le Cordon Bleu podcast. In this podcast, we get some real insight into the food and hospitality industry from a variety of renowned chefs, industry experts, and Le Cordon Bleu alumni. Join us as we hear the fascinating stories and unique experiences behind some of the best-known names in the industry.
Welcome to the Cordon Bleu's podcast sessions, which we have done over the last few years with several industry leaders. And today, I'm particularly proud to have hopefully a great chat with one of the top industry leaders in luxury hospitality industry, who has graced few different amazing luxury hotels in the European and North American segment. I'm at the iconic Gucci suite at the Savoy, London, where there is a fair bit of history of hospitality being born and also being engraved in the many aspects of culinary and gastronomy aspects, which has created a lot of impact in the hospitality industry. I welcome Franck Arnold, who is the Area Vice President and the Managing Director of Savoy, London, who is going to potentially give a bit of a great insight of a bit of stories in terms of hospitality journey which he has encountered and some of the insights of what are the trends and challenges and opportunities what we can potentially see in the world of luxury hospitality sector. Franck, welcome to the session and thank you very much for sparing a valuable time of yours and getting this started off.
Nitin, thank you for coming to the Savoy, and I'm really honored to be able to share some time with you and spend some time with you and with your audience, and to tell a little bit more about the Savoy Hotel. Of course, we've got the Royal Street by Gucci.
Yes.
And it's extraordinary views of London.
Quite amazing location there.
Every corner, as you well know, because to the audience, Nitin worked here a few years ago. And he did excel. So he did not become a professor from day one. He started his journey very much at the Savoy. Maybe he'll tell us about it later. Anyway, welcome to the Savoy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's 2 decades back that I was here, and it gave me an immense stepping stone into what a great platform for the wider hospitality, which I embraced over the years. Franck, you have had an amazing journey in this hospitality industry. You've worked in many different places. Why don't you, if you can just give a bit of an insight on your journey to the hospitality and how you landed up at the Savoy, this iconic Savoy.
Well, I hope you have got some time, ladies and gentlemen,
We do have.
I'm not 30 anymore, and therefore it's taking me quite a while, a bit of time to actually give me the chance and the privilege to be here at the Savoy today with you. I started, I would say I was not a dropout, but close to being a dropout of high school, and I did not know what I wanted to do in my life, and I was around 15 years old. And a friend of mine had started this school in Strasbourg, France, where he had the chance to be learning how to become a cook. We used to say cook, now it's a chef, but a chef. And he was telling me about what he was learning, etc. I always loved cooking, and the idea of being able to travel, doing something with your life professionally, and have the chance to be with people, discover different cultures, and that through the cooking. But I found that absolutely, exciting when at the time when you are 14, 15 years old, you don't really know what to do, and you're not really motivated to just do regular program. So I had the chance to join a hotel school, and to become a chef. So I went to the culinary program initially, and I spent the 2 first years of hotel school learning how to become a cook, a chef. But then I loved everything that I was learning. I really enjoyed. And I had the chance to continue and pursue my education. And then I did what the equivalent of the high school degree, but specialized in hospitality, culinary and restaurant. Then I had the chance, because I was still enjoying what I was learning. Yes, I worked in different hotels and restaurants and in stage internships. And so I did a diploma in management in hospitality. I did my military service in France. And after that, I had the chance to attend a master's in international hospitality at a business school in France called ESSEC in Paris that had a joint program with Cornell University in the US, which I did, and I graduated from there, and I joined a company back then called Intercontinental, which had a great management development program. So I joined Intercontinental. I worked initially in Paris until I was transferred to London. That was 1992.
Wow.
I worked in Hyde Park Corner at the Intercontinental Park Lane. Then I was transferred to Athens in food and beverage. I worked initially in rooms because they wanted to give me complementary education, and I was essentially a food and beverage person. Then I wanted to get back to food and beverage. I was assistant director of food and beverage in Athens. Then in Brussels as F&B, EM F&B in Madrid. I opened a hotel in Valencia in Spain. And then I was offered the position as hotel manager at the Intercontinental, the Barclay in New York City.
Wow.
And then at that time, the company had changed because it had become a very large company focused on many different aspects of business. And I had an opportunity to work as a hotel manager in Chicago for 4 seasons, which didn't work out very well for me, or I was not really prepared for that job at that time. And but it was nevertheless probably one of my greatest learning experience, which led me to take over a beautiful luxury boutique hotel in Washington, D.C. called the Jefferson, which had the chance to run, close, and help renovate and reopen as one of the, I would say, one of the jewels of Washington, D.C., close to the White House.
Who was the president at that time?
Well, initially it was Mr. Bush, but I had the chance, I shouldn't say that, I had the opportunity to witness Mr. Obama.
Oh, amazing.
Becoming a president in the United States, which was a very historical moment. And then that was 2008, while he was introduced in 2009. And then I joined a hotel in Scotland called the Balmoral, one of these, I would say, grand old dame of hospitality. Yeah. And I joined and I stayed there for almost 5 years. And then at that time, I was recruited by the Ritz-Carlton hotels to run their Toronto property in Canada. So again, I moved the family back because in the meantime, I got married, had 3 kids, and now the kids are, growing. And so we moved to Canada, and we stayed there again 4.5 years. And so we are in early 2020. COVID has hit. The Ritz-Carlton is closed. Most of the hotels in the world are closed.
Yes.
Or working on a very, very basic and minimal service basis. And I received a call I'm on my way to the Ritz-Carlton in Toronto. I need my car. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. And I received a call from this recruiter, headhunter, whom I had not spoken with, and sent me a message. So yes, call me. I'd be on my way to work, although the hotel was closed. I was still going to work or going to the hotel because I'm not very good at working behind a computer, staying at home. And I don't think my wife enjoyed that for me to be, at home either. So I really enjoyed still going back to the hotel because that gave me the strength and the motivation to get out in the best possible way of this pandemic. But coming back to me driving my car, I have this wonderful lady who calls me and says, "Frank, can we take you back to Europe?" I said, "No." Why? I'm here. I've been here for over 4 years. I'm running a great property. I work for a great company. My 2 sons, they've started university. Yes, it's COVID. Why on earth would I want to move during COVID? Mm-hmm. And they said, "No, but can we tempt you back? It's for a hotel in London." And I was expecting something to be like, what would have this great MD regional VP opportunity in London, but maybe not, working for not this type of property. So I'm driving and they said, "No, Frank, this is very game changer." And I said, "But tell me, what is it?" "What is for regional VP and MD of the Savoy in London." Put my foot on the brake, park the car, and say, "Okay, Leslie, go." The rest is history. I moved a few months later. I arrived here during, it was COVID. It was the end of, not the end, it was September 2020. And 2 weeks later, I, with the rest of the team, we reopened the Savoy, which we closed again 4 months later, and we reopened 5 months later. Now, since then, it's been great, Nitin. Thank you for asking.
It's been 3 years, a bit more than 3 years now.
Absolutely. I celebrated
Amazing.
my 3rd anniversary last week.
Wow. And it's been a huge journey when it comes to brushing with luxury hospitality, both in Europe and North America. Now, coming back to the Savoy, which has got a timeless identity in many ways, with a huge reputation to maintain, how do you and the team, the wider team, maintain the service and the quality, which is one of the key things which you have to kind of offer to this illustrious guest? How do you manage that?
Before I answer the question how, I'd like to tell you why.
Sure.
We are the caretakers of this property. In a way, we are the custodian of this hotel. It's a legacy that we have to maintain, we have to curate, and we have to ensure that this place is going to be as good as it once was, if not better. This is the only way we can remain competitive in this marketplace. Mm-hmm. We have stunning hotels around us. There are many competitors, very, very respectable hotels, and new ones coming in the marketplace. What we have is the Savoy. So if you talk about the Savoy, first it's a name. It's like me, putting my foot on the brake and parking the car. Why would I come? Why would I make a move at this time in history when we are facing, the largest pandemic since the early part of the 20th century? I think it resonates in people's mind. It has got this aura. It's got this reputation that when you say Savoy, people are, "Oh, wow, there is something like, there's some glitter, there is glamour, there is something that people dream of about the Savoy. Something which might be ordinary for some very, very well-known people, and something which is extraordinary for ordinary people who still come and want to have a taste of it."
It's been etched in the history for long, especially when it's almost in synonymous kind of way how you describe hospitality. When you look at the regal hospitality, you always associate Savoy, and it's put an etching mark in the history of hospitality.
Yes, and so we, in light of all this competition we have, all this market, which is very, very demanding, we have to constantly challenge ourselves to remain relevant to today's audience and to future audiences. So how do we maintain quality? So I was answering why, because why do we have to do that if, we have the reputation, we just have to open our doors, people flock in, and and people spend a lot of money and leave, etc. And that mission accomplished. No. We only are able to survive in the long run if we keep and maintain our promise on a day-to-day basis. And on a day-to-day basis, what we do is to curate these experiences with our guests. And it stems from that. It starts and it ends there. We are only as good as the last customer we had, the last guest we had staying at the Savoy, whether it is for afternoon tea, staying in the guest room in the suite, staying in having lunch, dinner, breakfast in our restaurant, meeting, going to the spa. We are only as good as every interaction. And this is how we manage our reputation. Of course, you are in the, we are in the Royal Street by Gucci. It's extraordinary. It's a very ample, large street that we sell for a lot of money. But this is the physical aspect. The tangible is this. But what we curate is the intangible. It's the human relations. And as I often say during our orientation, I speak to people who are joining the Savoy, and it's not only the Savoy. Any hotel of this caliber would probably have a similar approach. We are not rocket scientists. We're not sending spacecrafts, on the moon, although it's been difficult lately. But what we do, where our challenges, where our very existence lie, is on how well or how badly do we manage human relationships and create those extraordinary experiences. Of course, we have the Savoy, so we're gifted with, a fantastic location, a great building, an extraordinary history, and it's, we can tell stories about the Savoy the whole day. But what makes us relevant is how we still manage those relationships on a day-to-day basis. This is where I would say that our expertise lies. It's not in our ability to, yes, of course, when we might be able to talk about that and technology and AI and how this will impact and affect us. But for now, and for probably at least the next couple of decades, the preeminent reason for us to be at our raison d'être is to curate and to nurture these extraordinary experiences so that people leave the Savoy and say, oh, wow, yes, it's the Savoy. But it's not the glitzer and the gold on the chandelier. It's the people that people meet, the people that create those interactions. Because at the end of the day, the person who cleans the room, the person who check that, all the flowers, the plants, the people who prepare your food, serve it, the people who check you in, who recommend you a place to go, these are all people related. We spend 75-80% of our time curating that. Yes, quality is also the ability to provide an extraordinary environment. This is where you need capital and expenditure. But 80% of our time is spent with making sure we got the best possible people to deliver the best possible experience. And that's quality.
Thank you. That was we can probably have a topic of this particular domain spoken for almost an hour or so, and go into several different angles to discuss the various issues and challenges which can come along. It's interesting you mentioned about the human relations. You also touched base on artificial intelligence, AI. With the changing customer needs and aligning towards the increased digital aspects of how we are all moving into. How has the Savoy as a hotel embraced it? And, we understand it is inevitable that we have to change to the modern times. And of course, we have done so many things in the areas of hospitality, and many industries and many sectors have embraced it very well, especially the luxury industry. But what has Savoy kind of put together in terms of getting the digitalized experiences to the wider guest?
Well, there are many examples where, in general, I don't know if we can speak really about AI, but technology in general, has enabled us to provide first a better experience, because it provides us with better information technology, so that we can anticipate guest needs. So that's very important. How we communicate and how we use the technology, what you have in your hands, and what we all carry with us is unbelievably helpful to anticipate, to react, to communicate, and therefore to deliver a high level of service to our guests who come here. It is also helping us to become more efficient, and therefore these are investments in technology, whether it is information technology, it's property management system, it's guest relations management system, is guest room management system, GRMS technology in the guest room that we are now testing for the new version of our guest rooms, which is going to be implemented. It's a whole concierge app, which is going to be providing instant access to people, to services. So that only increases the speed at which we can react. It gives, especially, we have younger generations who rely a lot on this type of tools to make decisions. Younger, now I do that too, sorry. It's for everybody to actually enjoy. But when I speak about a guest room management GRMS system, it still provides us, yes, with better access, it avoids making mistakes. For instance, if you have the ability to place directly an order that will be, or you have an order form of some sort that will be directly on your phone, that you can link to the hotel technology that goes directly either to the concierge or to the in-room dining coordinator, it probably will avoid as well some communication mistakes and faults that we do because we are human. But it will never replace It can, for instance, robots have arrived. Robots have started cleaning rooms. Robots are answering queries and questions. But that's not true luxury. I think the luxury will continue to exist provided that we can continue making mistakes, and because we're only human. And therefore, when we make mistakes, we need to make amends. Therefore, we create something very unique because we can overcome these frustrations or this failure or these thresholds by becoming human. We try very hard. These aspects of service delivery comes from the heart, and it comes from the guts. And robots, the beauty of robots is they will never have hearts or guts. And we as humans, we will continue to create those experiences because we are able to tie and link each other with the heart, with the gut, sometimes with our brain as well. But the brain will largely be replaced, I would say. If it's only intellectual, I think, yes, a lot of professionals are at stake or at risk. In our industry, especially in the luxury part of hospitality, I think that what makes us very unique and what guests will continue to seek, possibly at a higher cost, will be these human experiences, because everything else might one day become automated. And And maybe I don't want to see that world when it becomes all automated. And I like to think that we still have something to add in this world. In our little thing, we are a provider of good times. Again, we're not revolutionizing the world. We are here to provide social opportunities, environment that goes beyond environment, and opportunities to meet, to socialize, to date, to encounter, to be wowed, to be mesmerized, to be surprised. And I think we still can do that in our industry of luxury hospitality. That said, we are not totally, ignorant and dismissing the idea that AI will take more and more preeminent, parts in our day-to-day life.
You know what? Some of the thoughts what you shared there can be actually put as quotes in the coming years, actually, and which can, when we reflect back into the history, how the evolving of the human transmission or human touch to the linkage of technology, some of the things what you shared with Roberts, the hearts and guts, that's quite interesting.
I went to see this concert recently. It was more actually a show than a concert. It was ABBA. It was all virtual reality. It was all, how do you call those things, projected. So they were done. But it felt like real when you were like 50 yards from the stage. And it was absolutely extraordinary. The technology that was employed there was just fantastic. The show was, again, extraordinary. What I missed is that it did not touch my heart. It failed to get me standing, singing, dancing, because there were a few details that were missing on these avatars. The eyes. The eyes when there was, when the camera, when the camera was projecting a bigger image of the singer, then you can see that the eyes were somewhere, but not with us. It was virtual. And therefore I was not singing or dancing. I was watching. I thought it was a great show. And this is where I think that, we still had a little bit of future ahead of us as humans.
Correct. Now, with Savoy as this historic institution which kind of screams luxury, it's almost a bit more than a decade that one of the major refurbishment has happened. Probably the most expensive one in London, or probably in Europe. There are several elements to take into account here. I'm specifically looking into the design aspects of it. What are the things worthy about talking about those designs of the Savoy? I know there is many, but if we can probably highlight few.
First, you have to imagine that there are many stakeholders. First, there are the owners who have to, vouch for a mission, a vision that the designers will come. And first you have a bidding, you have a tendering process for the design company that will be taking us, in our next 10 to 20 years. And probably the greatest challenge when it comes to designing a new room or a new suite for the Savoy is to integrate the past, 134 years of history, to integrate that. So there's a certain feel that renovation needs to embody. It's the history, the legacy. Once you enter a new room, you still need to feel that you are at the Savoy. And so there are markers, there are historical, there are design markers that need to be present in these designs. And then there is the new story. How do we tell? Because we need to step forward. Mm-hmm. We need to move along with the world around us. We cannot just, otherwise we would still be having exactly the same rules that it was built in 1889. So we definitely need to move forward, respecting and embracing the past, but also not negating the future. As an analogy, I would say, look, which is actually a much younger product, but it's the Porsche 911, right? It's been in existence in 1915, so it's much younger. It's half the age of the Savoy, by the way. However, they have been able to maintain an extraordinary positioning with a car that does not have anything to do with the original car, but yet you know that you're still in a 911. So if you use this analogy with the Savoy and say, okay, how can we maintain the legacy, but being totally and very relevant? One, we need to be historically relevant, but we also need to be working and living in today's terms.
So with so many competitions in the marketplace, there is a lot of emphasis on design. And how do you differentiate as a luxury operator in dealing with the new clientele market when it comes to design?
Well, first we have to take into consideration what the trends are. But we cannot only be trendy, because we're not a lifestyle hotel. We're a historical classic hotel that needs to remain relevant in the future. So we need to take into consideration what the trends are, what the technology is, but we also need to provide still to every customer entering a Savoy guest room, for instance, the sense that they're still at the Savoy. So we need to embrace, and we to accept and take with us this extraordinary history with us. And that needs to be then transformed by a designer who will take that history into consideration, the trends, the technology, the needs and wants of existing and future customers, transform that into a design that will be approved and supported by, of course, us, the operating management team, the guests, but most importantly by the owners.
Yes.
And also by the company, by people who are designers and experts who will help us make the right decisions.
There's several layers of people you're talking about.
Yes, and I forgot to mention, the operating team. It means we need to have a thorough understanding of how this guest room will survive and how sustainable it's going to be in the future, because we don't do renovation every year. In the best case scenario, it's every 7 to 10 years. Now we've had COVID in between. We are now at 13 years minus 2.5 years of COVID. So it's for us, it's time to do something so that we still remain being the Savoy.
Well, I'm sure there is a lot of history being etched and how this is going to be transformed into guest experiences. But now, talking about guest experiences, food and beverage is a very crucial element of what Savoy is famous for. Over the years, especially with the inception of Savoy, started with Cesar Ritz, the legendary Cesar Ritz, as the first manager, and Auguste Escoffier as the first chef, who created a lot of groundbreaking things. The brigade system, when you mentioned about the brigade or the chefs, in especially the hierarchy, the very brigade system was created at the Savoy. Now, with so much of food and beverage focus in this building, what are your thought process? What are your focus in terms of gastronomy, especially when you deal with a lot of different stakeholders? Because It's one of the hotels which has taken different angles in getting the best of food and beverage for the discerning customers. So if you can just share a bit of the thought process behind your F&B management, the gastronomy aspect.
Well, first we're in London, and we cannot disassociate any thought process with the fact that we're in one of the most exciting gastronomic capitals of the world. It was not the same in 1992 when I arrived here. The most exciting one of the only restaurants that was exciting other than traditional French restaurants, which were good for what they were at that time, but that was the only thing. It was Quaglino's. That was the exciting stuff for a 24-year-old in London. Oh, we need to go and to say that. And it's still, and I'm glad that it's still in existence nowadays. But back then, nobody wanted to speak about, well, gastronomy. I think British people always found a good excuse to travel, to experience that, until they came to realize that first, it's a land of so much great food produced. When it comes to fish, it's an island. It's surrounded by extraordinary seas. So all the seafood, the fish, and on land you've got a very rich, wealthy. You look around us; it's green for pasture. There can't be a greener pasture around. Maybe in New Zealand, but so far away. So if you think about it, to come to terms with the fact that it's an extraordinary land for that, and then we needed people to do that. Stop hiring French people to do it, or Italians, and then suddenly we started to have British chefs coming to terms with the fact that, yes, this is a real profession. We've got a real extraordinary land to work with. This is how, Marco Pierroy, Heston Blumenthal, Gordon Ramsay, and plus all the other French chefs have been here, the Roux brothers, the Raymond Blanc. These are extraordinary chefs. And I'm probably missing many, many very deserving chefs and younger chefs that come to play now. But I think if you look at historically where Britain was, it's more 30 years ago now. Yeah, actually, it's 30 years ago. And where it is now, it is a totally transformed country, where people had become obsessed with food. Everybody has become foodie. And then, when I arrived and during COVID, I was invited to speak to wine producers in England. And, I had just arrived from Canada. The only thing I remembered from wine producing, I was in Scotland, so there was no wine. It was whiskey. But in England was, yes, I heard that some people had tended to do producing wines. Now, I was not well informed, that's one thing. And then I'm invited to speak to this English and Welsh wine association, winemakers association. I said, yeah, sure. So how many people are going to, because it was online, how many people am I going to talk to? Oh, you're going to have around 450. I said, excuse me? Yes. Yeah. And I was flabbergasted to discover in the industry there's so much growing. And of course, since then, I've come to discover there are actually beautiful wines that are being made here, not only in sparkling, but in others, And climate change is a reality that is going to change the winemaking landscape.
Especially the south of England has benefited from the climate change.
Yeah, it's a bit sad for, about why, but definitely now, I hear that Pinot Noir is coming and some more, and different grapes from, that are more resistant than others, etc., are going to make their way to Britain. I think it's extraordinary. So the Britain I used to know, in terms of gastronomy, then and now has drastically transformed. So with that, we've got, the best contenders around the world want to have a place in London. And nowadays, if we want to remain successful as a hotel, we have to offer power and choices that are commensurate with what the people want. Now, we can't do everything. We can't be everything to all people. And therefore, we have decided that whatever we do, we are going to stay true to who we are, We're going to have to maintain the level of excellence that we propose to our guests, and we're going to be or have to be very relevant to the local community. Whatever we do, our restaurants and bars need to be successful with the local population. Where in London, if we get the stamp of approval from our local population, everybody else will want to try it because you want to taste and try what the Londoners like. Not what you can find in Dubai or Las Vegas. No, we're in London. So therefore, we have an array of choices currently. We have extended our relationship with, arguably, one of the very top chefs in England, Gordon Ramsay, who has had a partnership with the Savoy for 20 years at the Savoy Grill, which has just been renovated. The Savoy Grill was extraordinary, still, and will remain extraordinary. It's a good, and there's nobody better than Gordon Ramsay to be able to maintain those standards and this level of service. We have extended this relationship to the River Restaurant, which was under the hotel management until pre-COVID. And when I arrived, I felt that there was a need to provide something different, something that restaurateurs do best. Restaurant. We hoteliers, yes, we dabble in many things. We are generalists. And because I've done a lot of food and beverage and because I went to culinary school, it doesn't make me a great restaurateur. We have great chefs, great restaurateurs who do that very well, probably better than we can do it. We just have to find a way that our company cultures can work together and provide an experience that still is going to be in the guest's interests. So therefore, we've got that. We've got 1890, which is a small 25-seat restaurant, which sits on top of the Savoy Grill, which used to be a private dining room. And Gordon Ramsay and team wanted to transform this. And there was a kitchen in the back, and there is an extraordinary view of all the arrival at the Savoy. So they wanted to activate that space and transform that into a small, fine gastronomic experience. And the theme would be paying homage to Auguste Escoffier when he arrived here. He arrived here actually 7 months after the hotel opening, because the first chef, rest in peace, was not the right chef for the Savoy, and he was not able, together with the manager, to put the Savoy on the map. And Ritz-Carlton, back then, he already had the vision as, we are bringing an extraordinary hotel, the first true international luxury hotel to London, but with that, we need to bring the top gastronomic experience. And he was able to convince César Ritz, who back then was, he was a hotelier in the south of France. He had a restaurant in Baden-Baden, which is in Germany on the, Baden-Baden.
Yes.
But he wanted to bring César Ritz because César Ritz was already known to know the who's who, not only in the new industrialists or the grand bourgeois and these industrialists who had enormous amount of money, but he was also very well introduced in the aristocratic circles, especially the British one, because he used to welcome them in the south of France. Ritz-Carlton, the impresario who created Savoy Theatre, the Savoy Hotel, etc., wanted César Ritz. He was only able to convince him to come. And Ritz said, first, he didn't want to. He didn't accept to. He just had the lounge and then he left. He was able to convince Ritz to come here with a big check. Big check. And also at the condition that he would be able to bring his chef. His chef was this Auguste Escoffier, who, as you mentioned, revolutionized at least in the West, he revolutionized
he can be termed as a godfather of modern cuisine.
Yes. And
Modern for the last
French cuisine was very heavy, very lengthy, and Escoffier simplified it. Now, if you see the menus of Escoffier, you still need to go through 14 courses before you finish your meal. But that was a simplification of cuisine. And since then, the Savoy was the place to meet, to entertain. And at the very basis of this entertainment was gastronomy. So we need to, again, it stems from the past, but today, in the future, within the next 2 or 3 years, I would like, with the rest of my team at the Savoy, to be able to offer a choice of experiences, whether it is with Gordon Ramsay, but also in our breakfast and afternoon tea in the Thames Foyer, which we are working on very exciting plans. I hope they will see the light sometime in the future, with a transformation which is still respecting the past, but again, offering something exciting to our guests, whether they are local guests or hotel guests. We've got 2 extraordinary bars. We've got the American bar. We've got the Beaufort bar. Both bars have got great personalities and offer a very unique experience. And we've got our meeting space. We've got a meeting space where we serve, banquets from private dining rooms up to, 350 people in our Lancaster ballroom. And we've got in-room dining where we need to constantly, remain relevant. And finally, we've got one very, very extraordinary outlet or venue, which is called Simpson's in the Strand, which has been in existence since 1828 and 1848 as a restaurant. So I'm not sure, I don't think it's the oldest restaurants in London, but it's certainly one of the most established.
Very respected.
I hear a number of people asking me, when are you reopening Simpson? What are you doing with Simpson? So I still can't talk about it. I would say that, we are very, very close to finalize plans for a very, very exciting reopening in a format that is, again, we still are going to be in Simpsons, but we're going to be moving forward.
I was about to ask some inside secrets of that project, whatever it is, but now we already told that it's
I won't be able to confirm what we're doing.
That's fine. Franck, I'm very pleased that you touched base on the diversity, inclusion, equality. That is one thing which has been most talked about when it comes to people management. Now, the other aspects of post-COVID challenges, which most of the industries worldwide was suffering, is in terms of the supply chain and procurement, logistics. Now, as a hotel, as a luxury hotel, you deal with a lot of ingredients in the kitchen and in the wider food and beverage. You deal with a lot of equipments, be it anywhere in the hotel. How did you manage the procurement aspect of it in the last few years? I'm sure there's been a huge change in the way procurement as a domain is being seen, and there's been a lot of management change in that domain and that area.
Well, you got many things that happened. Of course, you had the pandemic. Then in the last few years, you've got the aspect of sustainability, where we had to work hand in hand with some of the suppliers to help us, becoming plastic free at least. Single plastic use is no longer available for for our guests. We still are now working on that in the back of house with how do you replace plastic bags in the kitchen, etc. These are solutions that we are developing. How do we change using even glass bottles, especially for water, which we use in extreme large quantities in hotels like this, to become more sustainable. The aspect of sustainability is also in in the sense where we want to use more local products, How many times have you heard chefs saying, farm to table and, local produce, and which absolutely we must take into consideration. Now, that said, we still are in Britain, and, the type of vegetables you get in the wintertime is not necessarily, in quantity and in choice, the same as you have in mainland Europe. And therefore, the access to these products have been made more complicated and more expensive, of course, with inflation, but then added to all the administrative difficulties to import and export, etc. So, of course, if you have the government, everything is rosy and everything functions. But in reality, yes, we are getting tomatoes, but they just don't have any taste because they need to stay longer in fridges. And therefore, to have tomatoes that taste like anything, you have to make sure that you got the right sources, that you have to curate them, etc. Fruits, the same issue. Luckily, we've got a lot of local supply for meat, fish in abundance. So a lot of challenges that perhaps have been let's say resolved mostly, but still it's not great. And I mentioned inflation. Inflation means that we need to be very clever as to how we manage our menus, and therefore what we can find and how we can transform that at a price that is still on one hand accepted by our customers, but also at a price where we still can make money. So that's on the food and beverage side. However, it's the supply chain is, for a number of reasons, has become more difficult, especially for all the equipment that we are traditionally importing, especially from Europe. We have pieces for our lifts, spare parts for washing machine, which for our big, large irons, which are much harder to get, which take longer to import, which create a lot of operational challenges, which we have to deal with. Sometimes we have people going back to the good ironer and having to work, and this is creating a lot of stress and pressures, extra pressures, and cost, because everything, all prices have shot up. Yeah. And therefore, in a way, we had to translate those increases as well to our own pricing. And everybody's aware, restaurants, bars have become more expensive, but also hotel rooms, have increased. Our rates have increased. So we, on the other hand, this is where AI or other technologies can help us to have access to different suppliers and sources of supply that we may not have had the chance to access, or intermediary that do a better job at consolidating purchases, which result in being able to maintain the cost of acquisition to a reasonable level. So yes, it hasn't been easy. Brexit is what it is. Yeah. Brexit is behind us. We move on with a new set of rules and regulations, and we just have to do the best we can with what we're being given. And at the same time, hopefully, future governments will be eager to ease certain things to help us remaining where we are, because at the same time we've got a lot of competition arriving in the marketplace. Very exciting for London as a destination, but it's also a much tougher competitive landscape than ever before.
Yeah. You mentioned briefly about sustainability. If you look at the hospitality industry in general, it is quite known for its outsized environmental impact in general because of the waste which comes out, the energy which needs for it to kind of move on. Any CSR initiatives which you have worked on with the Savoy and with probably another partners, which you can share?
You know, we've got recognition from Green Key. We were one of the pioneers in sustainability here at the Savoy. Long before my time, we have a director of quality and sustainability whose job it is, you know, really to look at that. We're now embarking, in addition to what Accor is doing with a program called Planet 21, and there are several, you know, software and systems that are putting into place for us to be able to measure our carbon emission through, especially in terms of energy, but now also in terms of food wastage, which we have now started as a company initiative. But in addition to that, you know, the Savoy is 134 years old. It is basically two different buildings at different, you know, height that have been put and come together, and with materials that, you know, that of course are being renovated gradually, but it's not the most energy efficient building. So what we have done, and we have been supported by our ownership and encouraged by our ownership to embark in a program called BREEAM and CREAM, which are two critical programs to be able for us within the next 3 years to have a full understanding of where we stand in terms of carbon footprint, and also once we know where we are, to set the goals that we want to achieve in order to remain, of course, relevant, especially for the future audiences, and so that we can assure, you know, the long-term success of the hotel. Those who do not take sustainability and their responsibility toward the environment into consideration will cease to exist. I'm not, you know, I can't predict when, but I can assure you that, you know, for us, if we don't become totally, you know, transparent, engaged, and driven toward establishing goals, and we will cease to exist for a number of reasons. I don't think that investors will support and encourage building like this to continue to exist. So we may become, you know, stranded as an asset if we don't react. We could become totally ignored by our guests, who decide that, you know, dinosaurs like the Savoy should not continue to exist, like diesel cars. We don't want to be a diesel car in 2030. You know, we want to be at the forefront as an example of, you know, an existing, you know, historical asset that is making constant evolutions and improvements to remain relevant in the future.
Wow, that's a strong statement.
We don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. We will improve. We will become. I can't honestly. I'm unable to tell you at which stage we're going to be carbon neutral.
Yep.
I don't know if we actually can establish that goal, that one day we could become carbon neutral. I don't have the tools, I don't have the information, but definitely we want to become much better, environment citizens.
Yeah, it should be a collective approach from various industries, various sectors, and I'm very glad to know some of the things what you're doing. It's having your own team of people looking into the quality and environmental aspect of it is something not very often you hear that in hospitality industry.
But did you see, this is where AI can help us. Of course, you've got building management system, but the technology can certainly help us to assess where we are, where, you know, energy is essentially a big part of it. But consumption of energy, whether it is electricity, gas, water, are absolutely critical in how we manage that.
Yeah.
But also food wastage,
Yes.
you know, food practices, you know, lavish buffets, choices and plethora of things that after a couple of hours you need to throw away because you no longer can serve it to anyone else. So we need to evolve there, and we need to encourage and we need to make sure that our guests know about, you know, other choices, alternative choices that we need to propose them and offer them to be less taxing on the environment.
Great. Now, talking back, or going back to the point about people, emphasis on people. What can higher education providers like Cordon Bleu? We specialize in the gastronomy segment. We have programs in culinary management. We are embracing on the higher education segment of both degree and hospitality programs. What do you foresee from your end in terms of the new younger generation coming into the hospitality sector? What are the areas which you emphasize on in terms of putting it in the forefront of ensuring that these talents can be taken into wider hospitality segment or hospitality sector?
Well, you described it, Nitin, you know, if you wanted to become a chef back in my time, you know, rarely would people go to school for more than 2, sometimes 4 years, then would become a chef. Very few would have a university education.
True.
Now it's not if not the majority, it's a lot of them, you know, have got higher educations, and they need it to, because society has changed. The number of people who now go to university versus, and I mean, university is not the sacred graal. You know, I've got friends of mine who actually went to hotel school, did the 2 years, you know, basic schooling, and do exactly the same as I do. So it's not by any measurement the panacea for success, but chefs, they have become, much more educated on so many fronts that I would say that for them to be able to continue to be one day to be either entrepreneurs and have their own organization, whether it is restaurant or some form of culinary endeavor, they need to understand what tools and have an understanding of business in general to be successful. But I think that fundamentally we still need chefs to know how to do a béarnaise and have and maybe it's not only the béarnaise, but they need to have the basic classic culinary skills so that they can apply those skills to whichever type of food they are producing. I was amazed to see at the Cordon Bleu, the various fields of expertise that you are now developing, not only here, but around the world, with the different type of gastronomy, the different types of food, with the intervention of people from abroad, from not only from of course, it's the French, classic, which I think is still fundamental to understand because it was basically written, it was written, by people who were doing French cuisine, but everything can be applied to so many other things. But that's not enough. If they want to be prepared to be successful, they need to have an understanding of course, business. They need to have an understanding of technology. They need to take sustainability into consideration. And therefore, the programs that you are now offering to them, it's quite amazing how education has evolved. And now you are training culinary professionals at MBA levels. I mean, it's quite. I mean,
yeah,
and I can totally relate to that and understand why. I started as wanting to become a chef, finished with an MBA, but I can understand why it is it is so important nowadays to have not only the technical skills, but also the business skills to do that.
Yeah, also we have now focused on some new concepts, or concepts are already there, but we have put a lot of emphasis on the plant-based offering, which is huge. The changing need of the customers have evolved, and it needs to be seen. It needs to be understood by the new generation as well. We have put a lot of emphasis on the nutrition program. That is one thing which has been a big highlight as well. There are several other aspects which we have kind of looked into as well. But again, I think the changing demography of different consumer patterns and consumption patterns have kind of also given us the challenge to develop new programs to be in sync with the industry need. So it's quite important for us to also sync with the industry, and that academia and the industry syncing is quite important for the larger good for the industry in general.
But you see it I remember the times when I was, with my whites, dock hats, and doing this, this training period, the stage, and you had chefs who they were totally autocrats.
Yes.
They were top down. Yes, they used to share their knowledge, but it was their way. There was no other way. They were not geared toward allowing anyone to express their talents, their creativity. Nowadays, chefs need to have for the majority, are able, of course, you still need direction. You need order and authority in the kitchen, because during the time of service, it needs to be a very, very well-oiled machine. But at the same time, they need to be much more aware of the human psychological needs of the youngsters who come into this profession. And we need to keep them in this profession, and not them, do that for 4 or 5 years and then go somewhere else because they can't anymore. We need chefs, with a long-term vision, with a strategy that enables them to think that, because it's a very difficult profession, because you're serving others, you're serving other people, you're standing, it's physical, it's psychologically taxing, there are periods of great stress. We probably need to look at, and we have started to look at flexing, the time at work, whether it is allowing more people doing part-times. Sometimes we are not trying even to have a 4-day work week, 4 on, 4 off, yeah, where people can choose to do that if they wish to do so. And but we need to take that into consideration if we want to attract. So those chefs who are coming and they are being educated at higher levels is good news for the industry.
Thank you. I hope we as an education provider, and like many, will provide justice to the need of the industry in the coming future. Thank you very much, Franck, for the great insight. Some wonderful topics what we covered there. There is a lot of thought process which you have shared us, which is quite inspiring for probably the listeners who will be kind of being captivated by the luxury aspect of how the industry is navigating. So thanks once again for the valuable time which you spared.
Thank you, Nitin. Thank you.
We look forward to working with you.
Thank you for allowing me to share that with
our pleasure.
With you and with your audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond Food and Wine, a Le Cordon Bleu podcast. Keep up to date with all our news and episodes by following us on social media or by signing up to our newsletter. Links are included in the episode notes. Until next time, à bientôt!